How does a man go from running for mayor of a small town to actively setting out to destroy it? Charles Standard Severance was born on September 25th, 1960. He grew up in a suburban neighborhood in Fairfax County, and his childhood was unremarkable. It was normal. Charles Severance would turn out to be very much the opposite. After finishing at Robinson Secondary School, Charles started an undergrad program at George Mason University and then went on to the University of Virginia. In 1996, Charles took a stab at a political career. He ran for mayor of Alexandria, and he ran for Congress in the same year. Neither campaigns were successful, and the townsfolk of Alexandria got a good look at his bizarre behavior. On one occasion, Charles plucked an American flag from the stage, pointed the dangerous end at his political opponent, and then at the audience, before fleeing the scene. In 1998, Charles met a woman at a square dance in North Virginia. They moved in together and had a son in April 1999. Charles was far from a good boyfriend, and the emotional abuse and strange behavior became too much for the woman, and she left him in early 2000s. This then started the custody battle that would send Charles spiraling. Charles represented himself as his own attorney, and all court proceedings with him involved were a dog show. He behaved so badly in these hearings that the preceding judge had Alexandria Sheriff Jim Dunning assign deputies to be in the courtroom as security. Around this time, Charles ran for mayor for a second time. This campaign was worse than the first. Then Mayor Kerry Donnelly recalled how Charles turned every question into a, quote, diatribe abasing the dangers of psychotropic drugs, and he punched the debate organizer. Things only got worse when custody of the boy was awarded to the mother. The judge was comfortable that it was in the best interest of the child. That same month, Charles killed his first victim. Nancy Dunning was a realtor with McGurney Associates in Alexandria. Nancy was actually given credit for helping the transformation of Alexandria into the bustling spot that it had become. Her husband also happened to be Sheriff Jim Dunning. On December 5, 2003, there was a knock on the Dunning home's front door. Nancy answered, and she was shot at point-blank range. The case went unsolved for 11 years. Understandably, the murder shocked the community. Jim Dunning was the initial suspect, and despite a rock-solid alibi, he never shook the suspicion of some of those in the community. Jim passed away in 2012 without knowing who had murdered his wife. A decade passed and things were quiet in Alexandria. But the past decade had only seen Charles descending further into madness. As Ben Porter, the man who prosecuted Charles Severance, put in his book, The Parable of the Knocker, the true crime story of a prosecutor's fight to bring a serial killer to justice, Severance imagined he was engaged in guerrilla war against an oppressive opponent, an opponent who wanted to impose its form of the law and order on a proud patriarch. Basically, Charles was hell-bent on destroying Alexandria. The second murder occurred in November 2013, and this time the victim was Ron Kirby. Ron was the director of transportation for the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. His murder had been pretty much the same as Nancy's. There was a knock on the door in the middle of the day, and when Ron answered, he was met with a bullet. Also, like Nancy's murder, the weapon used had been a .22 LR North American Arms 5-shot mini revolver with Remington subsonic ammunition. And then a few months later came the third murder of Rufan Lodato. Rufan was a local music teacher whose brother was a general district court judge. Again, there had been a knock on a door in the middle of the day and someone ended up dead. There was a difference for this murder, though. That difference was Dorcas Franco. Dorcas had been Rufan's caretaker, and she too was shot by Charles, but Dorcas managed to survive. This time, Charles's 1999 Ford Escort was also caught by a security camera. Dorcas helped police put out a composite sketch of what the killer had looked like. This sketch looked exactly like Charles' Severance, and with his car having been spotted in the area, investigators went to find him. Charles's plan to avoid the police was adoring a tricorn hat and a poncho, and rushing off to the Russian embassy to get a diplomatic refugee. It shouldn't come as a surprise that that plan didn't work. When he tried to enter the embassy, Secret Service was called and Charles was questioned. Charles was arrested on March 15, 2014. Ben Porter had a big choice on his hands. He either could charge Charles for Rufan's murder, only since it was the only crime that had significant evidence, or he could charge Charles with all three murders due to the similar fashions in which they were committed, and hope the jury saw the same case that he did. Ben went with the latter, and it was the right decision. Charles was convicted of the murders in 2016 and sentenced to 3 life sentences, plus 48 years. Charles is currently in Wallens Ridge State Prison in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, and it is safe to say that he will remain behind bars for the rest of his life.